Grandma's a baller. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Business Blaze with Danny. Oh, I've ruined the script already. It's really cold in here today because it's Monday morning. I came in, my boiler decided to stop working over the weekend, and I got a repairman coming in. Right now, it's cold. When I was a kid, yeah, what are we doing? Okay, yeah, should do some business. If you enjoy this show, you should probably check out a new podcast I do called The Simon Whistler Show, self-titled. Why not? Bands do it. I can do it. It's a show where I just have a little bit of banter, like a friend of mine here. We sit down. Actually, I'm pointing right over there at the desk where we do the podcast. It's fun facts. I don't really know how to describe it. We go over some interesting stories. When I've seen something that I found interesting, like during the last week, but it doesn't really make it into a video, I save it and then we discuss it in the podcast. That's what happens. That makes it sound really boring. I hope it's not boring. Check it out, link below. Or are you gonna get rickrolled? You will find out. With today's video, I basically heard that there were people who have spent millions of dollars or pounds or whatever in online mobile games, and I'm just wondering if that's actually the case. And just before we get started, I should say that this video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Not. And none of my videos will be. I personally feel that these mobile games, it's basically gambling for kids and it's kind of a scam. Also, the reason you've seen so many adverts for Raid Shadow Legends is because they won't leave YouTubers alone. Like the number of times they've reached out to me about, hi, it's Mike from Raid Shadow Legends. Would you like to sponsor? It's like, Mike, I've told you 9 times. No. Back when I was a kid, I often got criticized for wasting all my money on video games. I didn't really see the problem. Everyone else in my class was spending their money on chocolate, fizzy drinks, football shirts, cider fireworks, and cocaine. Hell yeah! If I wanted to shove a few 10-pence pieces into an arcade machine, or save up a bit of pocket money to buy the latest game for my Sinclair ZX Spectrum or Commodore 64, I didn't see the harm in that. I've never heard of a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. I've heard of a Commodore 64. I've never used one. I'm not really sure what it is. Everyone's like, Simon, how do you not know these games consoles? And it's like, I'm only 32. Life was a bit simpler in those days though. You knew exactly where you stood. If I got down to my last 10 pence in the arcades, I knew I was only gonna get one quick go on Paperboy before it was time to go home. This is one thing that I see in movies all the time, like kids hanging out in arcades. I never hung out in an arcade as a kid. I lived in the middle of nowhere. I had no friends. If I'd splashed out 10 quid on a full price game for my home computer, I knew that I had the complete game for life and could play it for as long as I liked without being ever asked to throw more money at it, assuming the cassette didn't snap. There was a time when computers used cassettes? Who knew? I'm still a retro game nut at heart. I still get out the old joysticks for an occasional wiggle, but you're more likely to find me playing Frogger than Fortnite. As I got older, I never got into the idea of spending the equivalent around $60 on a console game and then being expected to shell out even more on in-game purchases, pay-to-win features, microtransactions, and loot bags. Yeah, me neither. Like, I got a couple of games consoles, but I think I just subscribe to you pay like £8 a month or $8 a month or whatever for like the Xbox Game Pass, and you get like tons of games, which is pretty great. Not that I really have time for games, but I play like maybe half an hour a week. If I were to play a modern title, I'd be drawn towards the free-to-play mobile games. I always thought they sounded a bit more indie, a bit more homebrew, the kind of game that gets hatched from the brilliantly warped mind of a lone coder who's working in the bedroom just for the sheer fun of it, rather than a game that's already had most of the life and energy drained from it during the initial committee meetings. Yeah, I don't know, it's been a long time since I played any mobile games, but I often found like there were some really good ones. They were cheap, there weren't any in-game purchases, they were kind of indie developed. I liked those. It's been a long time. Mobile gaming is often viewed as a more lightweight and disposable option than the hardcore console gaming scene. So what breed of people are still managing to blow themselves? That was a Freudian slip. So what breed of people are still managing to blow thousands or even millions of real dollars on vital purchases within games that were meant to be free? Danny, I don't think they were ever meant to be free. I think it's like, yeah, the game's free, and let's exploit the out of you once you've signed up. And people are for sure going to say like, why do you promote like War Thunder and World of Warships in the comments below? And it's like, because I've played those games and I've never paid for and I still have a good time. I've tried some of the mobile games the companies approach us about promoting, and it's like, these games suck, naming no names, and then you play them and it's like every 30 seconds they're asking you to buy stuff. It's different, and it sucks. It's not like one pays me more than the other, it's just one I'm okay with and one I am not okay with. One such superfan is a 31-year-old man from Japan who likes simply to be known as Daigo. Okie dokie. Weirdly, I get the impression that he likes to keep his full name secret in case his parents ever find out how much money he's blowing on things that don't actually exist. This guy's 31, I'm 32. I stopped caring about what my parents think about what I buy. I don't know. When I was 15. And it's a fair amount. Daigo now claims to have spent over $70,000 on Sony's free mobile RPG game, Fate Grand Order. I don't want to delve too deeply into the mechanics of the game, largely because it sounds as dull as dishwasher to me. It's essentially a turn-based combat game. Oh, I didn't like turn-based games. Like, everyone, when I was growing up, was like, dude, Final Fantasy is the best! And I was like, Final Fantasy sucks. It's just like, why do we have to take turns? It's a video game. If I wanted to take turns, I'd play board games. It's essentially a turn-based combat game in which the player takes the role of a master who summons and commands a supply of servants to fight your online opponents. Sounds a bit non-PC, isn't it? It's like, I'm not gonna fight, so my servants are gonna fight. All right. The idea is that you take roles to win new servants, with the high-end servants that every player really wants are very rare and difficult to win. This sounds more like slavery than servants, doesn't it? However, if you pay for extra roles, oh wait, you have to pay for the extra roles. So essentially, you're paying for roles which allow you to win servants. So yeah, it's slavery. Jesus Christ, Sony. However, if you pay for extra roles, you stand more chance of winning the highly sought-after characters. But there's no guarantee. And even if you're lucky to grab one of them, you actually have to win them again several more times to unlock all of their top special powers. So Daigo has effectively spent over $70,000 on roles in order to acquire a stronger army of virtual servants, although most of these roles were likely to end in disappointment. In that sense, it may not seem like a million miles away from just gambling $70,000 on the roulette table down at the casino. Yeah, no, it sounds exactly like gambling, and I imagine this is going to be a recurring theme through this video. Also, with gambling, at least you have the chance of winning some of your money back. And I think there's like a legal amount. Isn't it like 80% that statistically that's the amount you have to win back? The casino can only take a certain amount. And it's one of the reasons I never gamble. I don't understand gambling, because yes, you can win, but you know, the majority of the time, and you know, statistically level it out, if you like gambling and you gamble a bunch over your lifetime, you're just going to lose whatever that, you know, 20% is that the casino gets. Obviously, not including games of skill. But there seems to be a strong sense of passion and genuine love for these characters within the Fate Grand Order online community. Yeah, I mean, and listen, old Grandma Jones or whatever, who's playing the one-armed bandit in the casino, is also going to say, oh no, I just love the game. It's like, no, Grandma, you're addicted to gambling. It's true that Daigo may seem like an odd character himself. At the age of 31, again, he is 31, he admits to spending almost every minute of the day on the game, except when his parents ask him to do a few chores around the house. He is 31. Daigo, how about you spend some of that $70,000 on, you know, a house for yourself? He also admits that he doesn't dare tell his parents how much he's spending on the game. If you live with them, assuming you live with your parents, they're going to have some idea of how much money you make, because they're your parents and you live together. And they're not going to notice when just $70,000 goes missing. By the way, if you're curious as to where he got all the money from, Daigo has vaguely described how he saved up a small fortune from trading stocks and futures, which seem to indicate that maybe rolling the dice also seems to be in his blood. Yeah, like trading stocks and futures is like another one. It's like generic jobs, you know, that are usually assigned to, you know, spies or drug dealers. Like, what are you into? Oh, I'm in the import-export business. What do you import and export? Oh, a wide diversity of products. Oh, so you're a drug dealer or a spy. But Daigo doesn't appear to have any regrets. Why would he? He's only wasted $70,000 on slaves that are not even real. I mean servants. Sorry, Sony. But Daigo doesn't appear to have any regrets and just seems to be indulging a harmless, if wildly expensive hobby. There is some harm in losing $70,000, which he thoroughly, like having to live with your parents at 31, which he thoroughly enjoys with every fiber of his being. The way he sees it, some people spent $18 on a movie and feel moved. I've spent $70,000 on Fate Grand Order, but it moves me. Yo, Daigo, are you unaware that there is a difference between $18 and $70,000? Is that just like, what? This may sound like a crap example, but I've got a better one. Someone undergoing a midlife crisis could easily splash out $150,000 on a vintage sports car and then just leave it in the garage neglected to gather rust. Can they? $150,000 is a lot of money. Who's like, I don't know many people in the middle of their life who just have $150,000 to spare. Daigo claims to have spent less than half of that on a hobby from which he derives daily excitement and pleasure. So, which dude made the better and more useful purchase? It can be argued that the first guy still has his vintage sports car. Exactly. It's not like it's going down in value. It gets a little rusty. It's already vintage. I mean, its depreciation or whatever has gone, maybe it even gets more expensive. But spending $70,000 on a game, that is gone. Whereas virtual games are wasting money on things that don't really exist, but it's worth remembering that you can often sell some of these fictional digital characters for real money, so it's not always a lost investment. Yeah, maybe. But also if the game stops being developed, or they change the rules, or they decide you can't sell characters, that's going to be a big issue. In this particular case, though, whilst Daigo can sell his servants to other players, he certainly won't get back anything like the $70,000 he completely blew on virtual roles. So the argument kind of falls apart a bit, but maybe he's just really loony, but what a ridiculously happy loony. Yeah, he's also got a serious gambling problem. Sadly, that's not the case for everyone. Australian radio broadcaster Triple J. I want a cool nickname. Triple W. This is the problem with your name being W. There's not really a lot you can do. Triple S! This Triple J dude exposed the story of Mike, a young man with a disposable income who decided to download the free game Transformers Earth Wars and got a little bit carried away with it. Triple J was shown Mike's genuine bank statements, which revealed that over just a couple of years, he had spent over $50,000 on loot boxes within the game. Oh my, Mike, you've made an error. Purchasing loot boxes with real money is always going to be a massive gamble. They're essentially mystery boxes in a game, which might contain something fun, like a cool new costume for one of your characters, or something that actually helps you to advance through the game, like new special powers or extra lives. Yeah, I love the costumes in games. Like, I've played the, it's not Fortnite, but there's another one, PUBG, where you parachute down onto an island. And I was playing with a friend of mine and his friend, who takes it really seriously. And he was all like, squad, form up on me, let's move out, let's move out. And I'm just running around. He's like, Simon, get that gun. You got to get the machine gun. I'm like, yeah, but dude, over here, there's a really cool costume. So I just, partly because it's fun and partly because it more just upset the dude, I'd just be like entirely focused on making my character look as cool as possible at the detriment of not wearing armor. We didn't play together again. And just like a lot of time, just like in real life, your mystery boxes will contain utterly worthless shite. How much interaction in real life do you have with mystery boxes, Danny? Again, it's just like pulling the lever of a one-armed bandit and crossing your fingers for good luck, only doing it thousands of times in the name of mobile gaming. Gaming, not gambling, don't sue me. This is gambling, guys. Gambling is like, I'm generally a fairly libertarian dude. Like, I think for the most part, you know, companies, as long as we're not getting super exploitative, should be allowed to do what they want. But gambling, especially when it's for children, is like, even when I'm like, we should probably not be doing that, should we, boys? Probably not right. At the peak of his loot box addiction, Mike was spending $500 a week on the Transformers game and now bitterly regrets his actions. He believes that these types of microtransactions, dude, it's not a microtransaction at $500 a week, embedded within the very core of mobile games are 100% gambling and need to be regulated accordingly to avoid others falling into the same trap. Yeah, the loot boxes, I think that's definitely gambling. When you're upgrading characters and buying stuff like that, I don't really think it's gambling. I still think it's slightly wrong, but I don't think it's quite as wrong as just the loot box thing. At least hundreds of thousands of others seem to agree. When Electronic Arts showed up on Reddit to post a lame defense of their use of microtransactions in video games, they ended up with a place in the Guinness Book of Records for creating the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. Over 680 thumbs downs and counting. Good. Several US states and European countries are already campaigning for a complete ban on loot boxes in console and mobile games. One of those European countries is Belgium, which is perhaps not too surprising considering that a particularly high-profile case of in-game spending cropped up recently in Antwerp. A keen gamer called Robin managed to get through $46,000 worth of purchases on the supposedly freemium mobile multiplayer strategy game, Game of War, Fire Age. I feel like I've heard of all of these because at some point they've emailed me offering me, you know, multiple thousands of dollars to promote these things. And then I tell them to f off. I think that if Robin wants to spend tens of thousands of real dollars, which would end up in Simon's pockets, on speeding up his progress within a mobile game, then just leave him to it. Yes, I think in this, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, if you're an adult and you're making decisions and it's like, if you got $46,000 to spend, okay, it's not gambling, you're making a decision. But there's a problem. Robin is a 15-year-old school kid. Yes, this is where it is a problem. Also, where the f does a school kid get? What sort of school kid are you? $46,000? Oh, I should read these. And he was using his grandmother's credit card to buy all this crap. Grandma's a baller. Apparently, what sort of grandma has a $46,000 limit on her credit card? Apparently, Robin became aware of the credit card details while helping his family get set up with a Kindle account and didn't see any harm in using the same card to get himself about 9 million gold coins on Game of War. Well, I guess he's 15, but I mean, at 15, you've got some conceptual understanding of how much money that is. This is just one of many cases around the world where young kids with access to credit cards are racking up huge bills on the likes of Farmville. Just very recently in the UK, a kid as young as 12 managed to quickly blow £900 of his mum's money on planting virtual trees, harvesting virtual crops, and taking care of virtual livestock. Farmville was a thing. Is Farmville still a thing? Or is it like a Facebook game? I was at university when Farmville was a thing, so 10 years ago-ish. No, longer than 10 years ago. I never played it, but all my housemates were into Farmville, and it's like they'd go away to lectures, come back and be like, oh, my crops are ready for harvesting. Even then, I mean, now I'm busy as even then, when I wasn't really busy, I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing with our lives? I'm not sure if Farmville has an option to send your virtual livestock to the virtual slaughterhouse, but if it does, you can bet 9 million gold coins this kid spent money on it. In all these cases, the developers of the game are unlikely to offer a refund, as they usually claim it's a matter of credit card fraud rather than an issue with the mechanics of their game. Yes, I would intend to agree with Farmville there. It's like it's not your responsibility to make sure people are using their credit cards correctly. I mean, if these people, if they're entering like their parents' details to pay for stuff, it's not the game's responsibility to do that. Also, I cannot imagine like the concept of taking my dad's credit card and using it to buy something on the internet without his permission is like so insane to me. It would be so insane to me as a kid. It would never even occur to me as a possibility. So I'm kind of like, this is on the parents. Rein your kids in. If your kid spent £900 on Farmville because you let them have access to your credit card, that's kind of on you, mum. Perhaps the game, punish the kid, but that's the point. You need to punish the kid. It's not your credit card's responsibility to raise your children. Perhaps the game developers do need to develop a healthier attitude towards how young minds are likely to respond to games in which spending tons of real money can help you win. For example, Game of War Fire Rage has been described by the press as an over-the-top cash grab and the most aggressively monetized free-to-play game ever released. I don't know when this game was released, but I'm gonna Google my inbox, hold on. Disappointingly, I haven't had the opportunity to reject Game of War Fire Rage. I'm genuinely surprised. But it also has to be said that many of these shocked and concerned parents who take their sob stories to the press may need to look a little closer to home when their kids are stealing their credit card details instead of wagging their fingers accusingly at the developer of the mobile games. Yes! A 45-year-old Californian man named Kevin Lee Ko is a big fan of Game of War Fire Rage. For a while, he also managed the accounting department of a local heavy equipment company, Holt of California. Oh, I know where this is going. That all went down the pan when he got caught embezzling about $4.8 million from the company over a period of 7 years. He did this by conducting hundreds of unauthorized credit card transactions and manipulating and falsifying records to mislead the bank when it started poking his nose into the suspicious activity on the company's accounts. This got real quick. Before he was caught, Kevin Lee Ko used the money to fund the kind of typical extravagant lifestyle you'd expect of a master criminal. He spent money on luxury cars, plastic surgery, fancy furniture. It's always number one on my list. What am I gonna do when I get rich? I'm gonna buy some fancy fashion. My wife would buy fancy furniture. And a membership to the exclusive Whitney Oaks Golf Club in Rocklin. But his biggest single expense, he blew over $1 million on Game of War. What the f***, dude? I mean, I guess if it's stolen money, who gives a shit? But also, you're going to prison. Probably. This is America, and it's a lot of money. That's over 20% of all the money he'd been embezzling over the last 7 years. Following an investigation by the FBI, Kevin Lee Ko pled guilty to charges of wire fraud and money laundering, and he's now facing up to 20 years in prison. That's gonna burn! But on the flip side of the coin, he's built up an impressively powerful empire on Game of War and garnered incredible level of respect from his fellow online players. Why? Because he bought all of his special powers? That 20 years in prison could whiz by in no time if they just let him keep his cell phone, which they won't because it's prison. But even he hasn't blown quite as much on mobile gaming as 62-year-old Stephen Barnes from Houston. Over the years, Stephen has happily spent over $2 million. What are we doing? Fuck. Over the years, Stephen has happily spent over $2 million on mobile games such as the strategy hit Modern War. It's fair to say that he's one of the whales or even super whales or even mega whales I prefer turbo whales. That's not an unkind reference to his size. Alright, steady on, Danny. By all accounts, mobile gaming has kept Steven in pretty trim shape, probably because he can't afford to eat much. No, whales has become the new industry-recognized term for the big spenders of the supposedly free-to-play mobile gaming scene. I don't really know anything about Las Vegas, but I did watch that TV show, Las Vegas, like back in the day, and I know that when the whales come, they get some pretty pimp-ass hotel rooms. These guys don't get that. Although they only make up a tiny percentage of the paying gaming community, they contribute a massive majority of the total revenue generated by the developers. These whales can wield a surprising amount of power. If I ever became frustrated by a game when I was younger, there wasn't much I could do about it apart from swear at the TV screen or threaten to throw the computer out of the window. These days, which obviously the developers would be really upset about, these days the whales can tell the developers to sort their shit out or lose their revenue. Stephen Barnes actually led a revolt on the Modern War game after the Japanese developers, GREE, began making unpopular changes to the gameplay and decreasing the value of some of the virtual items that Stephen and his online buddies had spent a lot of real money acquiring. Still, I'd rather have the cool hotel room in Vegas. Especially when I'm spending if you spend $2 million in Las Vegas, you're probably not even a whale, are you? Stephen was the head of an official boycott of Modern War, in which he was joined by thousands of other players who put their phones down in protest until GREE got their act together. The company eventually apologized, refunded some of the money of the diluted virtual items, and agreed to regularly communicate with the whales before making any further tweaks. It's yeah, because those guys are paying you a lot of money. A very clear indicator of who's beginning to seize the real power here. I think that's probably a step too far. The guys with the real power are the guys who are absolutely bilking the out of you. Although Stephen Barnes admits he'd previously spent up to 90 hours a week on mobile gaming, he's now cut it down to a far healthier 40 hours a week. At this rate, he might even be able to squeeze in a part-time job around his lifestyle, although you'd expect that he probably has never needed one. Now I'm very curious. I mean, I assume if it was publicly available, Danny would have definitely put it in here. It just leaves me wondering, what have I done wrong to not be this rich and not have to work? This is one of the things. It's generally the people who have enough money to spend, $2 million on gambling. It's they do it in a weekend in Vegas because that's the one weekend they get off every 6 months and they want to, absolutely blow it out. There's not a lot of people who have this much money who can spend 90 hours a week playing games. So it turns out that a wide mix of people are happy to splash out big money on mobile games, and not all of them are young kids or gambling addicts or master criminals or slightly eccentric people who get told to do their chores by mom or dad. Yeah, Stephen Barnes seems to be the only one who's just I'm rich, I got $2 million, let's just spend it on games. Stephen Barnes seems like a reasonably sane person with a lot of wealth to burn. He could go out and spend it all on conservatory extensions or luxury yachts or vintage wine collections or toilets crafted from pure gold. I think the strangest one there I find is conservatory extensions. He's I'm filthy rich, I'm going to extend my conservatory. I mean, I get all the others, even the toilet from pure gold. That seems pretty baller, but my gran extended her conservatory and she was from Yorkshire. But he's happy to spend it on something he enjoys doing. Of course, it can clearly develop into a problem. No shit. It could be argued that some game mechanics may need tighter regulation in the future to avoid players feeling compelled to throw ridiculous amounts of money on virtual items or speeding up their progress to power within a game. I'm not convinced that it should be even technically possible for one person to go through hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars on one free-to-play game. See, and I mean, it's not going to be good business, but I think the games would be improved if there was a cap on this, because it's if you can pay to win, then you could just become the absolute master boss, just if you're rich. If there was a cap on it, then at least, those master bosses would have to complete, the people who've spent loads of money, at least they'd have to compete against each other. Yeah, but I mean, that's never going to happen, is it? Because then there'd be less money to be made. And those loot boxes are unlikely to last much longer, as they do appear to be nothing more than completely unregulated gambling. Completely agree, those should be definitely banned. But as ever, it seems unlikely that the industry will take the first step without a friendly shove in the right direction from legislation. It's very much a booming industry. While 31-year-old Dago may have blown $70,000 on Fate Grand Order, it's only a tiny fraction of the $3 billion that the game has so far generated. Jesus Christ. Again, what am I doing? Who wants to partner with me and develop a mobile game? Raid Shadow Legends! I can't imagine that Sony are in any hurry to change how the game works. But the problem gamers are greatly outnumbered by fans who are just very happy to invest much of their disposable income into their favorite digital hobby. And who are we to judge these raving loonies? As to me, I'll just stick to shoving a few 10-pence pieces in the coin slots of Bubble Bubble until I'm told that it's game over. As for me, personally, I'll just play the ones that are on the Game Pass. Or I'd rather spend like the £50 or whatever for a game and then enjoy the game and be done with it. Anyway, this has been Business Blaze. As I mentioned at the start of this show, please do check out a new podcast that I'm doing. It's about facts and stuff. It's best if you just watch the show, then you'll see what it's all about. I'm going to link to it below. I'll put a few links down there because there's going to be there's a YouTube channel, there's a highlights channel, and there's a podcast if you want your audio on the go. People have said it's good so far, so there's that. Check it out below, and yeah, that's all my shilling done for today. See you next time.
Raid Shadow Legends.